Amazing discovery. Soldier and K9 unexpectedly encounter heartwarming girl whispering by cemetery. The quiet cemetery stood as a testament to the sacrifices of the past, but on this fateful afternoon, it played host to an unexpected encounter that would touch the very core of life. Jake, a recently returned soldier, strode down the gravel path with his loyal K9 partner, Max, at his side. Their movements were slow, burdened by memories too heavy to carry, but there was something transformative brewing in the air. Jake had never expected to find solace among gravestones, yet here he was, breathing in the scent of freshly cut grass and damp earth. He brushed his fingers across the cold stone, invoking the names of men and women who had given everything. Alone, amidst the oppressive silence, he often found comfort and a sense of belonging. But today felt different. Peering beyond a row of headstones, he noticed movement. An unexpected little figure. A young girl, probably around 8, knelt beside a weathered grave, whispering soft words. Jake froze, curiosity pulling him closer. Her tiny fingers danced across the cold marble as if tracing the essence of someone long gone. In that moment, Jake felt an unexplainable connection to the girl. He recognized the sadness etched on her face, a reflection of the wounds they both carried. With each gentle word she spoke, Jake couldn't help but be drawn in. He had choked on the loss of comrades, the weight of survival, yet here was Sophie, whispering encouragement to those who had sacrificed. Her belief that the souls could hear her lifted Jake's spirit. He took a tentative step forward, unsure how to navigate this fragile moment with a child. "Hi there," he said, his voice rough as gravel. She turned, and her large brown eyes sparkled with innocence and understanding. "What are you doing?" "I'm just talking to my dad," she replied quietly. "He's up there, you know. I think he can hear me." Her voice trembled as she spoke. That child was an old soul, bearing the scars of growing up without her father, a veteran who never came home. In their moments together, Jake's heart swelled with a strange warmth. He shared stories of bravery, of fierce camaraderie under the stress of battle. In return, Sophie opened up about her father's absence, each whispered tale stitching a bonding thread between them. They weren't just talking, they were healing. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake was beginning to find his footing back in this struggling town, yet the whispers and sideways glances weighed heavy as he ventured outside the cemetery. He could feel judgment in the air, the concerns swirling about veterans like him. Sophie, too, faced her own struggles. The townspeople didn't understand her rituals, the innocent connection she sought among the graves. Then a crisis struck. A flood threatened their neighborhood, endangering homes that were already teetering on the edge. It meant danger to Sophie's world and many others. In this desperate moment, Jake saw not just his own insecurities, but the flickering hope that blossomed through Sophie's eyes. The bedrock of courage was calling, but would he rise to the occasion, or retreat once more into the shadows of his past? As Jake faced the impending storm of uncertainty, he glanced down at Sophie. Her small hand reached up to meet his, a silent plea for courage and connection. Their friendship was more than a refuge, it was a chance at reclaiming purpose amidst chaos. Would he, this soldier hardened by battle, choose to step forward, to lead and show that resilience burns bright against the darkest fears? The weight of the decision wrapped around him like a tightening noose, but in Sophie's gaze lay a flickering flame of hope. The choice lingered in the air, heavy with promise and fear, waiting for him to step into the light or fall back into shadows. The sound of rushing water filled the air, a warning that the flood was more than a distant threat. It was a reality closing in fast. Jake felt the ground beneath him tremble, a primal instinct waking within. He couldn't let fear swallow him whole. Not now, not when Sophie was looking up at him with those wide, trusting eyes. "Come on, Sophie. We need to help," he said, his voice steadying as determination took root. Her small hand gripped his tighter, almost as if she was anchoring him to the ground. He knelt down to her level. "I know it's scary, but together we can make a difference. Let us get people ready." The fire of purpose ignited in her eyes. They turned, running back towards the cemetery gates. The path was familiar, the way clearer as they crossed the threshold into the town beyond. Jake felt energy bubbling up inside him, as if he was finally shedding the weight of his own burdens in favor of something greater. As they reached the main street, chaos unfolded around them. Neighbors grabbed supplies, their voices raised in urgency. Adults, usually so caught up in their routines, now banded together like a family bound by shared panic. Jake's heart thumped in rhythm with their frantic movements. People waved and shouted, giving instructions adrenaline-driven. They operated like a well-oiled machine even amid the storm. Jake spotted an older man struggling to lift heavy sandbags. Without thinking, he pushed himself forward, finding purpose in the midst of uncertainty. "Sir, let me help you with that," he offered, grabbing hold of the soaked bag. Together, they skidded it into place, forming a makeshift barrier against the encroaching waters. Sophie stood nearby, heart pounding, watching him. In that moment, she didn't just see a soldier, she saw a hero. More neighbors began to notice Jake. Whispers swirled, but this time they weren't filled with judgment, they were tinged with respect, recognition of strength in vulnerability. There was no denying the community facing the storm together, stitching their hurt and healing through shared labor. And just like that, Jake felt less alone. "Hey, kid!" An older woman shouted, a warm smile breaking across her weathered face. "Come help me pick up these supplies. We need all hands on deck." Jake looked back to Sophie, her face lighting up with determination. She raced toward the woman, a little soldier in her own right. Jake found himself smiling for the first time in a long while. They were part of something bigger now, a mission not just for survival, but for community, healing souls tangled in the scars of grief. He joined the rhythm of the town, feeling each heartbeat echo the universal struggle against the storm. As the hours wore on, sweat dripped down their brows. The floodwaters lapped dangerously at the edges of the town, but spirits soared higher than the rising tide. Laughter mingled with the fear, the raw human connection brimming with promise. Yet, amidst the frantic work, Sophie tugged at his sleeve, her expression shifting from bravery to concern. "What if it doesn't hold, Jake? What if we lose everything?" Her question tremored in the air like a fragile whisper amidst chaos. The vulnerability in her eyes reflected his own fears, dredging up shadows he thought he'd buried. The uncertainty sunk its teeth deeper into his gut. Nothing was guaranteed. He raised a hand, running it through his hair in agitation. "Together, we'll be okay," he said, though doubt seeped into his words. "We won't give up." But deep inside, he wrestled with his own thoughts. Could they truly weather this storm? They continued to work, but Jake's heart raced, caught between hope and fear. The moment of truth was coming. Would they find strength in each other, or would it all wash away? As the clouds overhead darkened, thunder rumbling like a distant drumroll, he realized they were standing on the cusp of something transformative. Something life-changing. Would he be able to protect not just the town, but a young girl who saw him as more than a fractured soldier? The stakes were rising, and as they worked harder, each second inching closer to the flood, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was still ahead. Would he rise, or would the flood carry them both away? The air was thick with tension and urgency, pressing down on Jake as he looked out at the swirling waters. Time felt strange, stretching and bending around him. He turned back to Sophie, who stood with hands on her hips, shoulders set in determination. "Let us keep helping," she insisted, her tiny form a beacon of courage. He nodded, a burst of pride swelling in his chest. "All right. Let us do this." They sprinted toward the group of neighbors huddled near an open truck, loading supplies. A temperature gauge on the truck was flickering, someone yelled it was almost out of gas. Jake could see the anxiety crackling in the air, fear playing on everyone's faces just like the storm clouds overhead. "Grab that case," Sophie shouted, pointing to a box teetering on the edge. Jake dove for it, and as he hoisted it up, a feeling of urgency empowered his muscles. He handed it off to a man nearby while exchanging a nod of camaraderie. This was teamwork, a patchwork of moments stitched together by shared effort. "Over here," someone called from further down the street. A group had gathered around an old oak tree, its roots exposed by the rising tide. Water seeped into the earth, threatening to uproot it. Jake felt the pang in his chest as he imagined it falling, a piece of their history lost to the flood. "Let us move it," Jake shouted, adrenaline coursing through him. He sprinted toward the tree, Sophie right beside him. They joined others in forming a human chain, stretching hands out, working to secure the tree's base. It was tough work. Heavy mud squelched beneath their feet, sloshing and buckling, but with each tug and grunt, they felt a measure of victory push against the dread. As the effort intensified, Sophie's small voice cut through the toil. "Jake. Look." She was pointing toward the woods bordering the cemetery. There, a figure stood partly obscured by the trees, a girl no older than Sophie herself. Her hair was windblown, wild like the storm, but her lips were barely moving as if whispering secrets to the earth. "Wait," Jake said, breaking from the group. "We need to see if she's okay." He took a few steps toward the girl, and Sophie followed, trusting that he knew best. "Hey there," he called out, his voice warm but firm. The girl looked up, surprise crossing her features. Her eyes were wide, as if trapped between fear and a surprising calm. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, lost in the wind. "You shouldn't be alone." "Heavy storm coming," Jake replied gently. "We're trying to protect the town." "What about you?" "I wanted to help." She hesitated, glancing back at the cemetery. "But they told me to stay." Her gaze flickered with longing and concern, as if she felt urgent ties to the past. Jake felt a swell of empathy. He understood her need to contribute. "You can help us, then. Come on." He held out a hand, feeling a spark of hope that together they could be stronger against the rising tide, but just as she seemed about to step forward, Sophie tugged on his sleeve again. "Jake," her voice trembled. "What if she gets hurt? We don't know her." Jake stopped, uncertainty crashing over him. He looked from Sophie to the girl. A rush of ambiguity twined around them, trust against fear, pushing for connection amidst the chaos. As thunder rumbled menacingly above, the girl took a cautious step closer, her face lighting with a flicker of hope. "I just wanted to help. Would the weight of their fears hold them back, or would they find the courage to embrace this unexpected ally?" Jake took a breath, the moment heavy with unspoken words. "Let us go together," he finally said, his heart pounding as if it contained the entire storm within it. And then, the flood waters surged, rising with an unmistakable force, challenging them all to decide who would stand with him in this broiling tempest. The wind howled, tearing through the trees like a wild animal, as Jake held his hand out, urging the girl to join him. The rain began in earnest, slamming against the ground as if the sky itself was pouring out its anguish. Splashes of muddy water sprayed up to his shins. He glanced back at Sophie, whose wide eyes mirrored his uncertainty, but he could see something else in them: determination. "Please," he said to the girl, his voice raised against the storm. "People are counting on us. We can protect the town together." With a deep breath, the girl stepped closer. The rain dripped off her hair as she finally reached for his hand. "Okay." Her voice was softer now, like a whisper pulled from the depths of hope. And with that, something clicked into place, the fear unraveling just a little. They hurried back to the group, the new girl squeezed in beside them. "What's your name?" Sophie asked, her own apprehension fading. "Lila," she replied, glancing nervously at the writhing waters. I used to play here by the tree." A hint of nostalgia laced her voice, and Jake felt an unexpected swell of kinship. "Then let us save it," he said, determination igniting him once more. They pushed forward together, Lila holding the line while Jake and Sophie tugged at the old oak's roots. Around them, others strained in unison, their unified grunts piercing the roar of the storm, but the water was relentless. It thrashed against the tree, inching closer and closer. Jake could feel the tremors underfoot as each wave crashed. "Just a little more," he urged. "We can't let it go." The voices around them melded into a single pulse of effort. Jake met Lila's eyes, and he could see her fighting the fear. Yet, like a spark of light in the darkness, she pushed through. "We can do this," Lila shouted, her voice rising above the chaos, and Jake felt a rush of warmth at her courage. They pulled harder, pouring their wills into saving what they could, when suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the air. The tree shuddered beneath them. Jake's heart raced. "Hold on." But the roots were giving way. A wave surged around their feet, and for a fleeting moment, time froze as the realization hit them, the struggle might not be enough. With that jolt, he yanked, adrenaline surging through his veins. Together they roared, pushing back against nature's grip, as if the sheer force of their determination could combat the chaos, and then, it happened, the tree groaned and shifted, but the roots stood firm. They felt the weight pulling back as the water receded, a temporary reprieve. Lila looked at Jake, her eyes wide with shock and wild joy. "We did it. We saved it." The cacophony of worry faded for an instant as laughter bubbled from her throat, brightening the oppressive gloom. Sophie beamed, tears streaking her muddy cheeks. "See? We can do anything together." But before they could celebrate, a loud crash echoed from the direction of the cemetery. Jake's heart lurched. What was that? Someone from the back exclaimed, "The old chapel. It's collapsing." Fear seized Jake's heart. They couldn't lose any more history, any more memories. "We have to help them," he shouted, the urgency reigniting his courage. He knew they had to act fast. With a shared glance of understanding among the trio, Jake felt his heart race in anticipation of the task ahead. "Let us go." As they sprinted toward the chapel, the rain battered their backs, but with each step, they held on to a glimmer of hope. Would they be able to save the chapel before it was too late? Would they all come out of this storm together? The rain poured relentlessly as Jake, Lila, and Sophie sprinted toward the chapel. With every step, the raw energy of the storm seemed to challenge their resolve. Their hearts pounded in unison, not just from exertion but from the weight of their mission. The chapel loomed ahead, its silhouette partially obscured by sheets of water slashing from the sky. As they reached the chapel grounds, the energy shifted. The sound of creaking wood rang out, each groan echoing like a death knell. Jake skidded to a stop, staring at the crumbling structure. "We're too late," he thought, dread pooling in his stomach. "No!" Lila yelled, breaking through his despair. "We have to try." She charged toward the door, her determination blazing like a beacon against the darkened backdrop. Sophie followed closely, arms flailing, enthusiasm eclipsing fear. Jake hesitated, a knot tightening in his chest. He could feel the anxious atmosphere surrounding them, the weight of history hanging thick in the air. But the sight of his friends risking everything pushed him forward, his resolve rekindled. He dashed after them, his heart racing. The door was ajar, swinging precariously, creaking like a tired old man. Wind blasted through the opening, a fierce reminder that time was slipping away. They slipped inside, water cascading from their clothes, yet none of them paused to shake it off. Inside, the chapel was as beautiful as it was haunting. Ornate stained glass panels flickered as lightning illuminated the darkened space. They spotted a group of townspeople, their frantic movements masking the scene as beams of wood groaned under pressure from above. "Over here!" Sophie shouted, pointing at a small crowd attempting to support a large beam that hung perilously above them. Jake didn't think, he rushed over, joining the effort. They formed a human chain, one by one bracing against the weight. Lila's hands were small yet fierce as she pressed her palms against the wood. Jake could see the tension etched into her face, her brows furrowing with the effort. "Keep pushing," he urged. "We're not losing another piece of this town." But suddenly, the beam shifted. An overwhelming panic shot through Jake. "It's going to fall." It was a split-second reaction. He tightened his grip, looking around for a hint of hope. "Don't let go," Sophie screamed, her voice barely piercing the cacophony of roaring winds and cracking wood. Just then, the voice of an elderly woman broke through the chaos. "Everyone, the altar. We need to push toward the altar." She was waving frantically, her frailty belied by her urgency. "Follow her," Lila shouted, rallying the group together. Strength gathered in their arms again as they shifted their focus toward the altar, which stood resilient in the storm's fury. They felt the ground tremble beneath them, but their unity fueled them. Just a few more pushes, and then silence descended as they redirected their energy. The beam creaked but held steady, and for a moment, Jake felt as if they were one solid force standing against the storm. He glanced at Lila, her face a mix of fear and fierce determination. It was as if she understood the weight of their struggle and what was at stake not just for them, but for every memory housed in those walls. And then it happened. A loud crash reverberated, shaking the very foundation. The chapel trembled as debris fell around them. "Get back!" Jake shouted as he reeled from the shock. They stumbled, instinctively clinging to each other as the air filled with dust and fragments of wood. Would they survive this moment, or had fate dealt them its final hand? As Jake's eyes searched for a way out, he caught sight of something bright amid the darkness, a flickering light illuminating a way forward. "Over there!" he yelled, pointing toward the glimmer. But would they reach it in time? The bright light pulsed in Jake's vision, drawing him forward like a moth to a flame. It seemed both distant and close, a beacon amidst the chaos. He urged his friends, "We need to move. Now." They stumbled through the haze of dust and debris, hearts pounding in unison with the rumble of thunder. The air was thick, stinging their eyes. Sophie was slightly ahead, trailing her fingertips against the cool stone walls, her voice cutting through the noise. "Jake. Lila. This way." The ground shuddered again, sending a shockwave through the floor. Jake barely kept his footing as he watched Lila slip. Time slowed as she reached out, grabbing hold of a nearby pew. "I got you," he yelled, sprinting to her side and pulling her back up. Together, they forged ahead, their every breath was a struggle as the chapel's roof seemed to groan in protest above them. In that moment, all thoughts of the storm outside faded. It was just them, pushing against the storm, desperately seeking that glimmer of hope. "Look!" Sophie shouted, pointing toward a small door near the altar, framed by that flickering glow. "That must be the way out." Without hesitating, they hurried toward it, the light growing brighter as they closed the distance. A deafening crack echoed above, and debris rained down in a terrifying shower. With adrenaline coursing through him, Jake yanked Lila and Sophie backward just as the door swung open. The glimmering light filled the cramped space, a safe haven beckoning from beyond. "In. Now!" he commanded. They dove through, rolling into a dimly lit room as the door slammed shut behind them. The sound of a crashing wave followed, and in an instant, they were cocooned in silence. Heartbeats thundered in Jake's ears as he sat up, scanning their surroundings. This place felt different. Sacred, almost. "Where are we?" Lila whispered, her voice barely audible. She looked at Jake, confusion and fear dancing in her eyes. Jake pushed himself to his feet, instinctively looking for a way out. The room was adorned with ancient relics and dust-coated memories, but one thing stood out: a shimmering glass lantern, casting ethereal patterns across the cracked stone walls. It had the same glow they saw from the door. "There's something about this," Jake said, moving toward the lantern. As he reached out, he felt a strange warmth radiating from it, a strange sense of safety enveloping him. "What is it?" Sophie asked, her brows furrowed as she joined him, curiosity igniting her fear. "I don't know," Jake admitted. As he touched the cool glass surface, the lantern flickered violently, lighting up the entire room for a heartbeat before fading again. In that instant, Jake saw shadows dance along the walls, figures dressed in old-fashioned attire, intertwining with the history of the chapel. It was as if the past had come alive. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a tapestry hanging against the far wall, vibrant colors now muted with age. The patterns depicted a scene of unity, a crowd gathered around a similar lantern, their faces filled with determination. "We need to know what this means," he urged. As they examined the tapestry further, Lila involuntarily gasped, stepping back. I think we're not alone," she said, her voice trembling. Jake followed her gaze, and his heart sank. In the opposite corner, a figure stood still, shrouded in shadows, barely discernible yet unmistakably present. A chilling realization washed over him. "Who's there?" he called out, his pulse racing. The dim light flickered again, revealing a young girl staring back, her eyes welling with emotion. "Please, help us," she said, her voice a whisper, yet it echoed through the chamber like a haunting plea. In that moment, everything changed. They had come seeking to save their town, but now they stood on the brink of a discovery that could reshape everything they thought they understood. "Who are you?" Jake breathed, feeling the weight of fate settling heavily upon his shoulders. But as he spoke, the lantern flickered again, turning the air electric with tension. Would they find the answer to her plea? Or unleash something far more dangerous? Jake's heart raced as he stared at the girl, a phantom in a world of shadows. "What do you mean, help us?" he urged, trying to bridge the gap between their worlds. The girl took a tentative step forward, her expression pleading yet full of an ancient wisdom that belied her youth. "The lantern, it's the key," she whispered. "But you'll need courage to unlock it." Jake exchanged worried glances with Sophie and Lila. They had stumbled into the unknown, where the past echoed with sorrow and longing. He couldn't shake the chilling feeling that they were intertwined with stories beyond their comprehension. "What happened to you?" Lila asked, unable to mask the tremor in her voice. "Are you trapped?" "Trapped?" The girl's whisper turned heavy with sadness. "We are remnants, echoes of those who sought to protect their home. We did everything we could, but the storm, it consumed us. This place is sacred, but it has become a prison." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The storm, the chaos outside, it wasn't just nature's fury. It was something deeper, something rooted in the very ground they stood on. "How can we help you?" he asked, desperation creeping into his voice. "Light the lantern," she said, her eyes brightening. "It holds the power to bind the past and the present. But to do so, you must confront your fears." Sophie stepped closer, her curiosity outweighing her fear. "What kind of fears?" "Fears of loss, of grief, things that dwell within your hearts," the girl replied softly. "To light the lantern, you each must face what holds you back." Lila's eyes widened, understanding dawning on her. "We can't light it just with wishes," she murmured, glancing at Jake and Sophie. "We have to be honest with ourselves." "I won't let you down," Jake promised, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotion swirling inside him. He could feel the weight of their journey, the sacrifices they were all making. He thought of his family, of the town they fought to protect. "Together," Sophie echoed, her hand trembling as she reached for Jake's. The girl nodded, a smile gracing her lips. "Remember, you are never alone. Not here, not ever. You carry their strength within you." With that, she took a step back into the darkness, merging with the shadows as if she was never there. Jake swallowed hard, staring at the lantern. The cool glass felt alive beneath his fingers, pulsating with energy. "We have to do this," he said, steeling himself against the unknown. The lantern flickered again, casting strange shapes across the room. "We can't back out now," he declared, looking at Sophie and Lila. They formed a circle around the lantern, the air thick with anticipation. Jake closed his eyes, letting the memories of his family wash over him, their laughter, their warmth, the fear he often kept locked inside. He needed to confront it, albeit terrifying. "On the count of 3, he said, his voice steadying. 1, 2, each heartbeat echoed like a distant drum, the tension rising. 3. As they grasped the lantern together, a bright wave of warmth surged through them. It ignited something deep within, and Jake felt the darkness in his heart begin to light up. Then the room exploded with light, the shadows sliding away to reveal glimpses of a shared past, each face wearing a mix of hope and sadness. The presence of the girl flickered back, joining the tapestry of memories, filled with light. "Now, we are bound," she said, her voice swirling around them, booming and gentle all at once. But an unexpected coldness swept through the chamber, knocking them off balance. The lantern burst with energy, flickering dangerously. "What's happening?" Lila gasped. "Something is coming," Jake whispered, dread washing over him. And with that, a shadow from the corner of the room shifted. They were not alone. What had they awakened, and would they be strong enough to face it? Jake's heart pounded louder as the shadow unfurled, revealing a figure cloaked in the darkness. It was tall and menacing, its form twisting into shapes that made Jake's stomach churn. The light from the lantern flickered wildly, desperately fighting back the encroaching gloom. "Stay close," he yelled, grabbing Sophie and Lila's hands tighter. They huddled together, hearts racing, the warmth of their connection a fragile shield against the unknown. The shadow stepped forward, a tangle of limbs and glowing eyes that seemed to absorb the light around it. "Why are you here?" It growled, its voice like gravel scraping against metal. Jake felt a chill as he met its gaze, filled with an unsettling mix of rage and sorrow. "We want to help," he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. He didn't even know if the words were true. Could they really help? Suddenly, the girl's figure emerged beside the lantern, ethereal and glowing, anchoring Jake's wavering courage. "This is not just any shadow," she urged, her voice cutting through the cold air. "It is a guardian of the past, a remnant of the storm. You must find the strength to face it." "What do you mean?" Sophie asked, trembling, her eyes wide with fear. The girl's haunting expression softened. "It has lost everything. It is the very essence of what was once a protector. Only together can you help it find peace." The shadow lurched closer, and Jake felt an overwhelming rush of memories crash over him, the laughter of family picnics, the warmth of a summer night. But underlying that sweetness was the bitter pang of loss. "I lost my little brother," he breathed, realization washing over him. The memory surfaced, cutting deep, igniting his guilt and grief. Lila stepped forward, her voice quaking. "And I lost my best friend in the storm. I never said goodbye." She choked on her words, and Jake saw tears glistening in her eyes. It would have been easy to brush that pain away, but now it felt urgent, raw. "What are we supposed to do?" Jake pleaded, locking eyes with the shadow. It trembled at their acceptance, at the acknowledgement of its own pain. "Embrace it," the girl urged, the light from the lantern pulsating in sympathy. "Tell it your stories. Let it know it is not alone. Remind it that memory carries love even in grief." The three of them nodded in unison. Clenching their hands tighter around one another, they began. "My brother was always the bravest," Jake said, his voice steadying as he spoke the truth he had buried. "He knew how to make everyone smile, even in the toughest times." Lila nodded, her eyes glistening. "And my friend, she was fierce and filled with dreams. We were supposed to grow up together. I never got to say goodbye, and I carry that regret." Sophie breathed in deeply. I've been scared of losing the people I care about, but I realize now that they are with me, in my heart. As each word left their lips, the shadow seemed to shimmer, its form flickering as if it were trying to step into the light. The energy from the lantern surged, wrapping around them, filling the chamber with a comforting brightness. Remember us, Jake urged the shadow, his voice rising with emotion. You don't have to guard the past in darkness. Embrace the light with us. The shadow pulsed, wavering between despair and hope. Then it took a step back, and the darkness that had clawed its way into the room began to recede, revealing a glimmering path that echoed with laughter and songs of the past, but just then, the ground trembled beneath them, and an ominous rumble filled the air. The lantern sputtered, begging for strength, and Jake felt a sense of urgency crashing over them. Hold on tight. He shouted as a fissure opened in the ground, darkness spilling forth. They had only begun to unravel the shadow's secrets, and now it felt like they were running out of time. Will we have enough light? Lila gasped as they stood at the threshold between memory and what lay ahead. Jake swallowed hard, determination igniting within him. We will find a way. Together. But even as his words filled the air, a chilling howl pierced the chamber, echoing against their hopes. What else awaited them in the shadows ahead? The darkness swirled around them like a living thing, and Jake's heart raced as he fought to keep fear from spilling into panic. The fissure opened deeper before him, revealing an abyss that seemed to stretch infinitely, a reminder of what they stood to lose. Stay together. He commanded, his grip tightening around Sophie and Lila's small hands. He could feel their fear mingling in the air, their breaths quickened, hearts pounding in rhythm with the quickening tremor of the ground. The shadow loomed above, its features a formless mass of sorrow, absorbing the last flickers of light. But even here, amidst the uncertainty, something shone through, a desperate longing for connection. Who are you? The shadow rasped, a flood of emotion threading through each word. We're people who care. Lila shouted, her voice breaking but determined. We want you to know you're not alone. We've lost, too. Love and grief are part of being alive. As the tremors intensified, the ground around the fissure cracked, sending stones tumbling into the darkness below. The lantern flickered precariously, casting long shadows that danced like restless spirits against the walls. Just when it seemed hopeless, a flash of light erupted from the lantern, burning bright enough to momentarily fill the chamber with golden warmth. Jake gasped as his memories surged around him, bright and vivid. Images of family, sunrise picnics, and backyard barbecues danced in his mind. You were a guardian once, he exclaimed to the shadow, sharing every echoing fragment. You helped others to feel safe. Don't hide in the dark. You have so much strength still. A ripple passed through the shadow, flickering like a candle caught in an unseen wind. The howl again resonated from the fissure, but this time it felt different. It was a cry of anguish wrapped in loss, but also a yearning for belonging, a plea for understanding that transcended the void. We can be your light. Sophie shouted, the fierce determination blazing in her eyes. Just like you protected, we can help each other. Tell us your story. Let us in. With every word, the darkness loosened its grip. The fissure's edges glowed a little brighter, pulsing with possibility. Jake felt their combined courage seep into the air, forming a bridge between their hearts and the shadow's lingering pain. A moment of clarity opened, a shared silence between them and the shadow. It undulated, its form shimmering with flickers of memories they couldn't see but could feel, the laughter of children, the warmth of safe embraces, the promise of kindness. Then, suddenly, the abyss below yawned wider. It welcomed the shadow's essence, hungry to consume everything. Wait! Jake cried, the urgency crashing over him again. We can heal this together. What if it doesn't want to change? Lila asked softly, worry creasing her brow. What if it prefers this pain? She hesitated, and in that moment of doubt, the light from the lantern dimmed, as if sensing their uncertainty. Jake met her gaze, heart thundering. If they faltered now, would they lose everything? The shadow writhed, caught between its past and the new flicker of hope standing before it. I do not wish to guard any more, it whispered, its voice raw and unsteady. But can I trust you? Jake did not hesitate. Let us show you, please. We are stronger together. But then came another howl, sharper and more menacing than before, as a dark figure emerged from the shadows behind the fissure, eyes glinting with malice. Who stands in the presence of despair? It sneered, a mocking growl rumbling from its depths. Fear gripped Jake, and time seemed suspended as adrenaline coursed through him. Could they truly fight back the darkness, or was this just the beginning of something much worse? The tension hung in the air, thick and electric, as the dark figure advanced, its eyes glinting with a hunger that sent chills racing down Jake's spine. The shadow beside them quivered, torn between fear and the newfound flicker of hope that Jake, Sophie, and Lila represented. Stay close. Jake shouted, gripping the hands of Sophie and Lila tighter. They huddled together, their hearts racing as the darkness pulsed around them, challenging their resolve. Who stands in the presence of despair? The dark figure growled again, its voice a low rumble that echoed around the chamber. Jake stared defiantly into the darkness. We're not here to fear you. We're here to help. The words reverberated off the walls, stronger than he felt inside. Behind him, the flickering lantern battled the encroaching shadows, sending out beams of light that felt like fragile threads but were packed with raw emotion and determination. Memories of laughter, loss, and the overriding power of love surged through him, connecting him to Sophie and Lila, fueling his courage. With eyes narrowed, he took a step forward, his heart hammering in his chest. You feed on despair, but we carry hope. Let us show you what it means to be together. The figure sneered, its gaze darting between the trio and the flickering lantern. Its form darkened, seeming to absorb all light. You think your hope can extinguish the darkness? You are naive. But Sophie sprang into action, her voice ringing clear and true. We're not just hope. We share our stories, our losses. We know what it means to grieve, and we understand that we can be seen. We can help each other. The darkness faltered for a moment, surprised by her strength. Jake felt the shift, a hint of uncertainty, a glimmer of recognition in the shadow's movement. We've lost too, Lila called out, stepping forward as fear fueled her courage. But we've learned that love and memory can unite us even when our loved ones are gone. You don't have to defend yourself against the pain anymore, there can be a future, but you need to let go. As if a spell is cast in the room, the lantern flared brightly, shining on the swirling mass of the shadow, illuminating a past filled with pain but also resilience. The dark figure hesitated, its form wavering. Jake felt the pulse of shared grief echo through him, deep and rich, threading all of their stories together. It drew closer, the pain in its eyes now visible through the veil of darkness. Do you really believe that I can let go? Its voice was thrumming with sadness, the depth of which resonated with them. Together, Jake whispered, his voice steady and sure. You're not alone. We'll share the burden, shoulder to shoulder. With that, the ground trembled again, but rather than pushing them apart, it seemed to ignite their resolve. The shadows shivered, reacting to the surge of energy around them. The flickering lantern glowed, casting an ethereal light that filled the chamber and faded into all of their hearts. Come with us, embrace the memories, let them lift you instead of weigh you down. Sophie implored, tears gleaming in her eyes as she spoke. The dark figure seemed to swell with conflicting energies, their hope pushing against its despair. For a heart-stopping moment, uncertainty lingered, but then something shifted. I am tired, the shadow whispered, its form blurring. I have carried this alone for so long. To trust it's terrifying. Jake stepped closer, allowing light to guide him forward. You can trust us, he said, voice steady. And together, we can become so much more. Don't let the past steal what you could create. As their words hung in the air, the shiny beacon of the lantern erupted with a rush of warmth. The dark figure began to quiver. A change was coming. With a sudden rush, the shadow reached out, enveloping them with its darkness, but instead of engulfing them, it was pulled into the center of light. "Embrace me. Share your hearts," it urged, and in a flash of understanding, Jake, Lila, and Sophie all linked their hands tighter. Together, they sent waves of stories of family, loss, love, and hope into the heart of the gathering shadows. The air shimmered, glowing with vibrant energy as they shared their laughter and tears, weaving an unbreakable fabric of their experiences. And that darkness began to soften, unraveling its painful grasp. It flickered with a life of its own, transforming within the embrace of their combined memories. The shadows lengthened, pulsing like a breath, as understanding filled the void. "Remember me," the shadow whispered, a tremor of emotion burrowing into the very essence of their shared connection. The room swelled with warmth as the darkness melted away, revealing a swirling pool of light that engulfed them. The lantern blazed brighter than ever before, illuminating the chamber and filling it with the vibrant echoes of lives from the past. Communities, bonds, and memories reeled together in a joyous melody, reminders that love prevails in the face of loss, that connections forged in the heart can never be severed. With a final breath, the shadow merged with the light, and the room filled with a sweet, laughing warmth that made Jake's tears tumble freely. "I can let go," the voice whispered, trailing off into echoes of joy that danced around them. In that moment, they were all together, past and present, loss and love, light and shadow, bound by a promise of healing. And outside, the storm began to subside, ushering in a brilliant dawn. They stood in the light, a soldier, a girl, and a friend forever changed. Together, they had woven a connection that proved resilient and full of love. 25 minutes ago, they had been strangers bound by grief. Now they were family, built on understanding and hope. "Let us go back," Jake said finally. "Together." As they stepped into the light, the echoes of laughter greeted them, wrapping them in warmth as they emerged into the sunrise, ready to face a new day. Jake's smile was radiant, filled with promise. In that fragile moment, they understood the weight of hope and the beauty of connection. And in the heart of the community, they found strength not just for themselves but for all who had ever faced darkness. Together, they would thrive, turning memories of pain into a tapestry of light for generations to come. If you felt a spark of emotion during this journey, this is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support more transformations. I want to know what you think. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.